My mom is a conservative woman. The apple fell far from the tree with me. My mom and I, male 40, already have a rocky relationship because of my religious beliefs. I'm agnostic. My mom is the type of person to try and trap you in her beliefs. Well, despite all that, she's divorcing my dad and going through the divorce right now, and she left the house. She came to my doorstep the other day while my son was at school, asking me to stay. I wanted to say no, but against my better judgment, I let her. I don't think I should have let her in the first place. She would only stay with me for the night to see her family in another state. My son is bi and has a boyfriend. His boyfriend usually comes over after school. They study here, and it simply didn't cross my mind that he'd be coming over. He ended up coming home with his boyfriend. He's aware of my mother's beliefs. I was stuck trying to avoid an argument. I just said that they'd be studying together and left it at that. Well, I guess when he was leaving they kissed and my mom saw it, came to me fuming, asking if I knew about these sins going on under my roof. I reminded her that those aren't sins under this roof, and it's my house. We went back and forth. The argument consisted of her saying that this was way too far. He's only a teenager and these phases shouldn't be supported, and me just saying to zip it and act like an adult about this and not traumatize a child or don't let the door hit you on the way out. It wasn't until she decided to go to my son impulsively in the middle of my argument, telling him he was unmanly and emasculating himself, acting like a woman. She said that he needs to stop trying to use women's people for themselves. No clue what that meant, and that he looks like a fool spreading the image that he's some feminine male. She tried saying he was going to the bad place, but I walked her out of his room. I told her to get her stuff and find a new place to stay. She argued that she was just saying it like it was. It's a sin. I said that if she focuses on sins, focus on hers with divorcing her husband, and we went back and forth for over 30 minutes of me trying to get her out of my house. Finally fed up, I grabbed her bags, put all her stuff in them, tossed them outside and told her to get out, or I'll get more extreme with this. I called my sister to come pick her up. She was waiting for 15 minutes. Mac's mom made it a point to tell the whole family, and they told me that doing that was an idiot move because they made her uncomfortable because we knew her beliefs. I don't think that's right at all. Their reasoning is a no in my opinion, but solely for what I did. Am I the idiot? I feel my only dumb move was letting her in, not the idiot. She claims to be a Christian, but skip the verses about not judging or loving one another. Your responsibility was to your son, and you took the action necessary to protect him and make sure he knew that you would. Your mother sounds horribly toxic, unfortunately, like a great many people. I'm glad your son is raised by a parent like you and not her. This story has a hypocritical choosing beggar idiot, and it's not you. She disrespected your rules in your house, even while you were doing her a favor. She couldn't zip it for 24 hours. Even if she disapproved, she could have gone to her room and shut up until the morning, or left of her own accord. She chose to die on the hill. Think of it this way, at least now it'll be much easier to go no contact after this, and your extended family told on themselves. Grandma sucks. Get a rainbow flag for the front porch. Maybe it'll work like garlic on vampires and she'll stay away. I'm 29 male, currently planning a wedding, and we're getting into the nitty-gritty details. For background, my parents got divorced when I was 5. The divorce happened after my dad fell in love with his current wife, my stepmom, Alice. They claimed they didn't cheat, but waited to be separated before anything physical happened. I don't know or need to know whether that's true. My dad and Alice got married, and we were living together by the time I was 7. They had my 2 siblings within the next 4 years. My parents had split custody, and Alice was 100% a mother figure to me. We're very close, and she's been there for me in every tough moment. She also helped pay for my college and grad school, which I greatly appreciate. My mom is a good mom, but we've never been as close as I am with my dad and Alice. Our personalities are very different. We're planning the first dances right now, and have my first dance with my fiancé, and she has hers picked out with her dad. Her parents are still married, so there's no drama there. But being so close to Alice, I really don't feel right excluding her and only dancing with my mom. So I asked her if she'd be comfortable doing one with me as well. She was overjoyed and cried with emotion. I'm really excited about it, but once my mom found out, she flipped out, said I'm replacing her as my dad had replaced her. I told her it's not a replacement, but she's been so supportive of me my entire life. And I consider her a true bonus mother, so I don't want to exclude her. But she doesn't want to accept that. So yesterday my aunt mom's sister called me and ripped me a new one. I know it's a little controversial, but in my heart, it's what I really want to do. Am I the idiot for going through with this and having 2 mother-son dances? Personally, I've been to a few weddings with steps involved where there were 2 mother-son or father-daughter dances, and it seemed really sweet, not like overkill. I will do the shortened versions of the songs so it won't be too long if that matters. Not the idiot. Alice has been in your life since you were 5. So basically most major formative years and events she's been extremely supportive, helped you get through school, and has been a true mother figure in your life, and you want to share this big event with both of your moms. If your mom doesn't want to share that time with Alice, no one can force her. But she also can't force you to snub a woman who's always been there for you from such a young age, because she's still hurt by something that happened decades ago. Yes, and I know it's not for me to judge people holding grudges, but OP said they divorced when he was 5. He's now 29, and his dad and Alice are still together. It might sting, but it's also reality. OP's mom must come to terms with the reality of the situation, and now her son has replaced her. This woman stepped into her life and took her child. Their relationship is arguably closer. Wouldn't you have a problem with that? OP, when you're saying your vows to your wife, staring into her eyes, and telling her how much she means to you, I want you to picture your future family. Now imagine your wife having intimacy with some other dude, and your wife unrepentantly says, well, screw you, you're not good enough, and she leaves. So all you have left in the world is your child. And now you're looking your mom in the eye and saying, yeah, of course she's just better than you. Dude, just wow, your lack of empathy for your mom is staggering. My point is that don't be surprised if your mom doesn't attend the wedding. Don't be surprised if you never talk to your mom again. Dude, your mom's life was burned to the ground. And now you're hugging and dancing with the woman who lit the match in front of a crowd. Man, I just can't fathom hating my mom that much, but you do, you idiot. I agree. If Alice was a good person, she would manage some empathy for the woman who's OP's actual mom. She could say, honey, that is such an honor to be asked, but I don't want to hurt your mom. And as a mother myself, I know just how hurtful it would be. You should share that special mom dance with just her. OP, this woman broke your family and then warmed her way into your heart with money, and you're saying it puts her on the same level as your real mother? Wow. I, female 29, own my own apartment. It was inherited, and I know I'm extremely lucky. However, to be able to keep the apartment, I rent out a room. We share a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom, and have separate bedrooms. When my current roommate, female 26, signed the contract, I reviewed it with her. Mostly standard stuff, but one section is added that no cats or babies. Children are allowed. Cats because I'm highly allergic, and children because I don't want to live with a child. Children visiting is fine. We have an agreement that any long-term visitors will need to be cleared by the other person. Breaking those rules will lead to eviction. We get along great. We're quite similar in our habits. She always pays her rent on time, and there is no food stealing. After about a year, she calls me into the bathroom one day. Standing in front of the mirror in a foreign-fitting stretchy dress, she looks at her stomach. She asks me if I think the dress still fits her. I could see her stomach was bigger, but I sometimes look like that in the evening, so I assume she was bloated. I brush it off and say she looks fine. We should normalize being bloated at the end of the day. She gives me a weird look before she says she's not bloated. She's 3 months pregnant. Yep, that's how she decided to tell me. Anyway, I'm kind of taken aback as it came out of the blue. She's never mentioned it before or wanting a kid or a boyfriend. Found out the pregnancy was from a one-night stand. After probably looking like an idiot for a few seconds, I calmly congratulated her. Not with a lot of enthusiasm per se, as I really don't get excited about the idea of pregnancy and babies, and this really was a surprise. But I was polite enough after an awkward silence before I made up an excuse to have to go study. A few weeks go by and we kind of just go back to normal. While making dinner one evening, I ask her if she's found a new place to stay. She's really confused and asks what I mean. I reminded her of the contract she signed that says no babies can live here. I tell her that she can stay up until the baby comes, but it's wise to look for a new place soon. I don't know if she assumed she'd be able to continue to stay here with the baby, but I guess so. A few days later, I started getting texts from her friends calling me an idiot for kicking out a pregnant woman on the street. She has like 5 months to find a new place, And I charge a pretty average rent for the room, so it's not like she can't afford other places with roommates. I completely understand why I might seem like an idiot to some, but I genuinely think I'm in the right here. Why should I ignore my boundaries and comfort because my roommate decided to have a baby when she knew from the beginning it's a deal breaker to live here? Anyway, I guess I'm here to get a wider perspective on this. Not the idiot. It's your apartment and she signed a contract. Getting knocked up does not automatically qualify you for exceptions. You haven't kicked her out. You've told her she needs to find a new living situation. She has months to find a new place, and all those friends calling and texting you can offer up their home for her to stay. Did she think you would help raise this baby and just forget about the contract? When was she going to tell you? LOL. If she thinks she's going to do this all by herself, maybe she doesn't understand what's about to happen here, because it's hard for me to imagine how you wouldn't get pulled into helping all the time, or at the very least being very inconvenienced and looking like a jerk when you tell you won't help out when she's exhausted and sleep deprived. So, I completely understand why you'd want to keep the boundary. Exactly. She did agree to the contract. No babies means no babies. You were never the kind of besties that you'd put up with someone else's baby, and you gave her 5 months' notice as well. Her financial situation is not yours to solve, and it's much kinder to be firm about this now than when she comes home from the hospital and finds her stuff on the curb. My wife and I have been married for a decade. She's a stay-at-home wife and we have no children. She has a daughter from a previous relationship, Sarah, and we've gotten along for the most part. Sarah's a junior in college pursuing a biology degree with additional courses required by medical schools. She's dreamed of being a doctor and helping people since her mom and I met. The problem is, she could be a better student. She's failed her biology 1 class and had to retake it to get a B. She really struggled in her next-level biology class and finished with a C. She also got a C in her chemistry class. She got a B in calculus 1 and 2. She's making A's in her non-science and non-math classes, so they're padding her GPA, which is at a 3.2. This semester, I just learned that she'd make B's and C's in her science and math classes. I'm not a doctor and I don't know any doctors, but I did online research. I discovered that medical schools require many things, but at the top of the list is a high GPA and top grades in science and math classes. Unfortunately, with Sarah's grades, she's not getting into any medical school. I even looked into nursing school to see if I could talk her into going that route, and all the ones I looked at require higher grades than she has. I talked with my wife about it and she said that medical schools look at other things besides grades, and that's where Sarah excels. She has a solid volunteer resume, and she cares about people. I argue none of that mattered if her grades weren't good enough. She argues that Sarah will do great in the interviews. As I said, I have no experience with medical school, so I can't argue with her logic. Instead, I talked with Sarah when she came home for Thanksgiving and told her to look into another major because she might not be cut out to be a doctor. She ran to her mom, and we all got into a huge argument. I lost my temper and yelled that I'm not wasting any more money on something she'll fail in. I told them both I'm not paying for next semester's classes unless she changes her major to something more realistic. I feel bad, I do, but I'm not rich and I don't have money to waste if she doesn't have a chance to get into medical school. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Medical schools are very competitive, and everyone has a minimum GPA requirement. If her GPA is below that, they'll automatically reject her without the chance of an interview. Sometimes being a good parent is putting a stop to the madness and saying no, even though it's hard. I would go and speak with some professors and guidance counselors about this and see what they say, then have her go with you before any decision is made about her future. Is she aware of the work that goes into being a doctor? What would it be like? Can she do some work at a hospital and see how hard it is? See if nursing is best for her? You are the idiot. It's your money, but to tell your stepdaughter out of nowhere that you cut the money isn't nice. Give her 1 semester to achieve better grades and prove herself, then she'd know what she had to do and what was on the line. I'm a successful engineer. Do you know what I had to calculus 1 and 3? Do you know what I never used since school? Any of my college classes. While a different career path, classes don't correlate to real-world experiences. Next time you go to your doctor's office, please ask your doctor about the last time they used calculus 1 or 2 in treating a patient. You are the idiot. It's not wasteful just because she doesn't have a 4.0. I've usually gotten along with all my son's teachers until now. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a single mom from my son's third grade class and she was complaining about how hard it is to be a single mom. Then she said, "You single dads have it so much easier than single moms." The stuff she was complaining about seemed more about her being lazy, and it's not like her kid's dad isn't as involved as she is. I, on the other hand, am raising a preschooler and a young child solo. There's no child support, no one to take them off my hands, etc. I can't tell you how helpful it is when both have an after-school play date with other kids. Parents take little stuff like that for granted. In response, I told the single mom, it's not that I have it easier, it's that I have my act together. She was offended by my remark, but it's true. Yesterday, I was speaking to my son's teacher. She's someone I wouldn't get along with, so I don't try to deal with her unless I must deal with her. She asked me if I thought it was helpful to tell other parents that they were lazy. I asked her if she was helpful with her grammar and spelling errors in her class emails. She asked what errors. I said, I'll send her some examples because I want it to be helpful. So I did, and she hasn't responded. Personally, she should be paying more attention to her emails, and less to providing commentary on discussions that she wasn't a part of. Not the idiot. Parents can't run to their child's teacher because of another adult. Also, if she took that as you told her she's lazy, then that's on her. She obviously knows it's true and got offended by it. Also, no reason for a teacher to mingle with parental stuff that has nothing to do with the child or education. I'd be petty too if she didn't have correct grammar teaching my child. Everyone's the idiot here. Look, I get it must be infuriating to have your parenting undermined by someone else, but take a breath and seek out the high road every so often. The mom was venting. Some people do a crappy job blowing off steam and bring other people down with them. Don't be like them. And while the teacher is way out of line to get involved with this scenario, your petty response was an unnecessary. Yesterday while I was making lunch, I heard a really loud sound, as if the ceiling was falling or a bookshelf had fallen. My husband, 41, and daughter, nearly adult, were out, and the only other person in the house was my son, teen. I was pretty sure he was in his room, which is on the opposite side of the house from the kitchen. So while making my way there, I checked every room, and everything seemed to be in order. I knocked on my son's door and called his name. No answer. I must have knocked and called 3 times before trying to open the door, which was locked. At this point, I was getting really freaked out, thinking that maybe he tipped his wardrobe or bookshelf, and it had fallen over him, and he was passed out on the floor. I was basically screaming his name. No answer. I have no idea how I did it. I just threw myself at the door and it broke. Now clearly the door was already weak. I'm thinking termite? But yeah, it broke. My son was fine. He was freaked out about the door but fine. The sound was his TV with the volume at max apparently, and he didn't answer my call because he didn't want me bothering his movie. His words were, "You were screaming like a harpy and it was annoying. I was trying to watch the movie. Fix the door." I said no, I wasn't going to fix it since to fix it I would have to buy a new door and doors are expensive. And as soon as his dad got home, he would remove the door entirely, as it was too broken to just stay there. He got really mad, said it was his right to have a door. He deserves his privacy. I said he had a door, and while I was the one that broke it, it was the consequence of his actions. So if he wanted a door, he would have to buy it. I know he doesn't have the money for it right now. Until then, no door. He can change in the bathroom. He said, "Screw you." I said it was grounded. Am I the idiot about the door? My husband is fine with it, and says only I know how scared I was, so only I can understand the appropriate punishment. I'm now terrified that if anything happens where we really need to reach my son, we won't be able to. But I have calmed down since, and I'm wondering if maybe I'm the idiot. Not the idiot. Sell the TV to pay for the new door. Win-win. I usually say parents are idiots for taking away doors, but this? You and your husband need to sit down and think about how to fix your son's behavior ASAP, because he's way out of line. My goodness, your son is incredibly disrespectful. If not having a door is a punishment he doesn't like, no door for him then. If it were me, he also wouldn't have a TV, phone, tablet, laptop, gaming system, etc. Saying screw you to a parent is almost always inexcusable. Top that with his nonchalant behavior about not answering, saying you screamed like a heartbeat and then fixed the door. Game over, dude. Agree. When I was a young teen, I dated some dudes that were super disrespectful to their mom and were, in turn, abusive towards their later partners and me. I remember afterward, I talked with the women in my family who said, always look how a guy treats his mom because that's how he'll treat you. That was the best advice I was given. OP, how your son treats you is disrespectful. But a big red flag for any potential partners. Disagree. You can't punish this out of him. He has to care about your feelings. He needs some sort of therapy for empathy and attachment because he's showing no regard whatsoever for the feelings of others at this moment. OP, you need to pay for his door ASAP if you want to build your relationship and see a therapist because you seriously need to look inward. You are the idiot, OP, for not getting him a new door. He needs privacy. He doesn't need a TV. Think of different and better ways to discipline him that don't remove his privacy and space. You also seem neurotic. By the way, there was one loud noise from the TV, even though it was at max volume and you didn't hear that while you were at the door made of cardboard. Are you lying to us? Are you a mother or a parent? She was afraid for her child's life. Hearing a loud thud and no response from your child is very nerve-wracking. OP, your son did have a point about the privacy, and perhaps the appropriate way forward is to have him help pay for a replacement door as a natural consequence of deliberately ignoring you. As a graduation present for my niece, my sister and brother-in-law let her choose where they spend their 2-week holidays, and my niece chose France. As my sister has connections with a swanky hotel there, she invited my wife and me, as well as a few other family members to join them on this trip, all expenses paid. The concierge has been booking activities and restaurants for ages. This was planned 11 months ago, and during that time my wife got pregnant. The problem is my wife loves all winter sports and activities, but in her condition, she can't participate in 2/3 of what was organized. However, my sister said it's fine. The hotel has 2 floors of spa and wellness facilities, and there's plenty to do, outside of physical activities in the area, which some other family members will be doing anyway. We can always ask the concierge for appropriate experiences. This won't work as my wife doesn't like being left out, and winter really is her favorite season, and we can't afford a trip like this ourselves. It's really upsetting her that she won't be part of the group to go mushing or skiing or fat biking, and that she'd have to see photos or hear about it later. I've asked my sister if we can't postpone the trip, but she said that's out of the question, as my niece goes to college in a few months. Also, so much time and money has gone into planning this trip. I suggested that maybe we could go somewhere warm, where my wife won't feel as bad for not participating in water activities, but my sister said that this wasn't a decision for us to make, we're just guests. We've just come to a standstill where I called her selfish and inconsiderate, and she said that's hypocritical since I want to change 8 people's plans due to my family planning. She told our parents about our talk, and they called and told me to prepare my wife and me for being unable to attend, or do many things in the upcoming years. Parenting means putting your own wishes to the side. They told us to be glad for the trip we'll have, even if we can't do everything as planned. We'll need to learn to be flexible soon anyway. But I feel like that's not the point. The trip was organized to make everyone happy, and now my wife will be excluded for most of it, and it just feels really unfair to her, especially when this can all be scheduled for next year or something. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. The plans are made, things are booked, and this is a special trip for your niece. There aren't things your wife can do. She may not be deliriously happy every moment of the trip, but that's life. The world doesn't need to bend over backward because someone got pregnant. Maybe just don't go. It's a painfully generous gift already, and you want a different free vacation present because your wife doesn't like that being pregnant limits her mobility? Yeah, tough crap. That's what pregnancy is like. An all-expense-paid spa baby moon in France sounds awesome. You two are being massive idiots, right? If I were the sister, I'd be like, you know what, never mind, you're no longer invited because I wouldn't take the risk that they're playing nice now, but it'll make a fuss once there and thus ruin the fun for the niece whose trip this is. They're already starting by asking people not to talk about the fun stuff they'll be doing. That's not going to get any better once they're actually there. Also, gotta love the "my wife got pregnant" part. You mean you two decided to try to have a baby? I'm not saying you should delay having kids for a trip, but you knew trying to have a kid might mean she'd be pregnant during this trip. So entitled. You don't deserve the invite and are very lucky your family seems to be forgiving. Don't ruin this for your niece. Update. Alright, I got it. I was wrong. I'll just see what pregnancy-friendly snow activities are available, and ask people to limit talk about their skiing and mushing. I'll be staying with my wife during this trip, But it won't change most of the others going on to do activities that we had all planned and talked about doing together. Or we'd have to hear about what we missed out on later during dinner or something. I have 3 adopted children and my parents have so far been good grandparents to them. They've never mentioned to my husband or me or to the kids anything about having a problem that I adopted instead of having biological children. My brother and his wife have an infant son who was conceived by a sperm donor. I know this because my brother's wife talked about it with me, but my parents were unaware. They treated my nephew the same as my kids when they were babies. So I've never been concerned that my kids would be seen as lesser because they're adopted while my nephew was supposedly their biological grandchild. This is why I was so surprised and confused that my parents have been talking about how excited they were to have their first Christmas with their biological grandchild. They did a big expensive holiday photo shoot with my brother, his wife, and his son, something they've never done with my kids. They were the ones who suggested it to my brother. It's not like it's just because he asked and I didn't. The weirdest part was that they casually mentioned some of the things they bought for my nephew for Christmas. As far as I can tell, they're spending more on him than they are for my 3 kids combined. And it's far more than what they spent even when my oldest was a baby. In fact, when my kids were little, they used to say there was no point in buying expensive things for babies for Christmases or birthdays because they wouldn't remember it. And they'd rather spend the money when they're a little older. So my nephew's suddenly being favored over my kids. And at the same time, my parents are starting to emphasize that my nephew is their biological grandchild as far as they know. I pointed this out to them and said it bothered me. They denied treating them differently and they said I was being weird about money. I truly don't care about money. I care about the difference in treatment and that my kids might notice how little they're getting from my parents compared to their cousin. And now for the part I'm starting to feel awful about. I told them the truth about my nephew. My parents were furious at my brother for not telling them and thanked me for telling them the truth. They keep saying he tricked them and gave them false hope about having a biological grandchild, which I guess answers the question of whether biology actually mattered to them. My husband says I did the right thing because it removed all the lies and secrets. And if they didn't care, it wouldn't matter. But if they did care, they deserved to know. My brother says it wasn't my secret to tell, and I jeopardized his son's relationship with our parents. So am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here. It wasn't your secret to tell. You were wrong to do it that way. But grandparents are super idiots and so is your brother. So here's what would have been above board. Go to bro, tell him what you've seen and how it makes you feel. Then tell him that he needs to tell his parents. And if he doesn't, you will. But you didn't. So acknowledge that you handled your part badly. But that doesn't excuse everyone else's way worse behavior. Opie's brother and sister-in-law didn't have to say a thing if they didn't want to. I mean, let's be real here. She only spilled the beans out of spite. It's not like her children were in mortal danger from the grandparents. She spoke about a very sensitive topic instead of tearing her parents a new one and going no contact to show she means business. If the situation was that bad, that would have been a reasonable option. I disagree. Opie shouldn't lie to their parents. If the brother didn't want them to know, he shouldn't have told Opie. Otherwise, it's asking someone to lie to their parents. When you hear them say something and you don't correct it, it's a form of lying. The brothers heard how they talk about Opie's kids not being biologically related and less than others, so he decided to defraud them. That's awful. Opie's not the idiot for speaking the truth. Exactly. Sure, it was their fault to tell, but they had no intention of saying anything because they were enjoying the benefits of keeping their mouths shut. Your brother didn't care that you or your kids were being treated differently or unfairly, because he wasn't on the receiving end. Now that he is, he cares about privacy. I, 27 female, have a brother, James, 29, who's married to Emma, 26 female, and they have a kid, Josh, young male child. I also have another nephew from my sister in her 20s but was not really involved, Danny, young child. I'm very close to Danny and I see him every Wednesday as I have Wednesdays off and his parents work. It is a great opportunity for quality time. So every Wednesday I take him to a small local waffle place for lunch. Recently James and Emma asked me if I would mind watching Josh when I had Danny on Wednesday. I said sure. This was about a week ago when they asked, and I meant to have them both the next Wednesday after Christmas. Well, yesterday I had a text from Emma just saying thanks for offering to watch Josh. But then she went on to let me know that she was going to prepare a packed lunch for Josh. I said that wouldn't be necessary as I'd take Danny out for waffles on Wednesday for lunch and we would all eat there. She asked me to send her the menu and I did. She said she didn't feel comfortable with Josh eating there as the food was very unhealthy, and she didn't see any options she'd be okay with Josh eating. She said she would send a healthy packed lunch for Josh to eat while Danny and I ate the food from the restaurant. I explained that I was sorry, but no, I was not okay with that as I thought it would be unfair on Josh to watch his older cousin eating lots of nicer food while Danny has to have a packed lunch, and that I also didn't think it would be fair to cancel our normal plans. Emma told me to stop being rude about her food, and that it wasn't her fault that I and Danny's parents allowed him to eat unhealthy food. James also got involved, saying I already agreed and I should respect his wife's wishes. I said I was sorry, but I could watch Josh and take him to a nice lunch with his cousin, or I wouldn't take him at all. Just to confirm, there is no medical reason for Josh's diet. Emma is very serious about health and fitness at family events. She's normally very strict about what she'll eat and allows Josh to eat. I've also seen her be quite controlling about James' diet, but I assumed she'd make an exception for her son to have a meal with his cousin. But maybe I'm being too judgmental. I just feel these rules are unreasonable and pretty harsh and I don't want to enforce them. So am I the idiot here? Having the child watch you both eat at the restaurant is ridiculous, even if the restaurant even allows outside food. Not the idiot. This is some next level controlling behavior. Good for you for pointing out how weird it is for a kid not to have one unhealthy meal. Don't give in. Are you tacitly supporting it? The poor child. Not only is it cruel, but it may be hard to enforce. Will you forbid his cousin to share? And lead to a meltdown? I have personal experience with people like her. Fitness moms who are obsessed with not feeding their children bad foods. It's like how to give your child trauma around food and their body. 101. Agreed. OP, you're absolutely right that you can't treat one child and not the other. That's a recipe for all kinds of resentment. Second, you're entitled to stick to your plans. If Emma doesn't want her child participating in those plans, she's essentially forced your hand. You simply can't take Josh. I, 26 male, have been raising my brother, a young child, since he was a baby. Our parents passed away not long after he was born. No one in my family wanted to take him in besides one set of grandparents, but they were too old to look after a newborn. I wanted to take a man, so I wasn't upset that no one was fighting me on it. The other day, my grandparents came up to visit with them. They had my cousin, 20 female. I honestly don't like this cousin since she starts drama and seems to thrive on it. But I thought she could keep her mouth shut for an hour while our grandparents visited, so I wasn't bothered by it. That was until I caught her telling my brother that I wasn't his dad. I knew then she was trying to start drama. My brother calls me dad and I call him son. So from the outside, people probably assume he has no clue I'm not his dad, but that's not the case. He's always known that I'm biologically his brother, and that mom and dad had an accident, so I became second dad. He's known this all throughout his childhood. I told my cousin to screw off and get out of my house, out of reach of my brother, of course. She tried to do some sort of gotcha and say, "What? Afraid your brother will find out you aren't daddy? Why are you angry at me for telling him the truth?" I didn't say a word and just threw her out. Now I'm getting calls berating me for swearing at her and embarrassing her in front of our grandparents, since apparently they chewed her out for it and told her that my brother knows and that she caused a fuss over nothing. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. She knew darn well what she was doing, and that was trying to start some major drama for you and your brother. You don't need that kind of person in your life at all. I'd go no contact, but only after telling everyone in the family exactly what she tried to do. I'm also glad your grandparents chewed her a new one for it. Your cousin wasn't trying to cause drama. She was actively trying to hurt your brother and your relationship with him, because she thinks she has the power to do it, and there'll be no consequences for her. The least they can do is embarrass her. I'm sorry, Opie. Some people just can't help themselves. Best of luck. I am Serena, a 27-year-old woman. I just got married recently. Back home, my father and brother treated me terribly. But it wasn't just me. My mother also suffered at their hands. We women were treated like slaves. If my father or brother commanded something, we had to act immediately. We'd be scolded for being slow if we didn't move fast enough. It was like this since I was little. Why are you so slow? Just get it done already. Yes, Dad. You can't even do this and you're in elementary school? What a disgrace. That's why women are useless. Don't say that, Dad. Shut up and be quiet. I don't want to be called dad by you. I've been doing chores since preschool, but it got worse once I started elementary school. While my father and brother relaxed, my mother and I were constantly busy. Whenever they wanted a drink, we had to bring it right away. Even in the depth of winter, if they wanted ice cream, we had to go out to the convenience store in the cold. So my mother and I were always exhausted. My mother felt sorry for me and cried all the time. I'm sorry. It's because I'm weak that they treat you like this, Serena. No, Mom. Serena, you have to leave this house someday. Stand on your own 2 feet and run away from your dad and brother. But what about you, Mom? I'll be fine. As long as you're happy, Serena. When I reached 10th grade, I thought about going to college. But my father said women didn't need education. He had a very old-fashioned mindset, thinking a high school diploma was enough for a woman. But I was in college prep school and all my friends were planning on going to college. I loved studying and I was determined to go to college. Despite this, my father wouldn't allow it. But at that time, my mother stood up against my father. I'd never seen her so determined. She excels at her studies. That's why I'm going to let her go to college. What? Are you challenging me? How many times do I have to say that women don't need an education? What good will it do when all she'll be doing is cooking once she's married? An education will never go to waste. It'll come in handy even after she's married and has kids. Then do what you want, but I'm not paying for the tuition. Fine, then I'll take care of it. My mother had some savings and she used it to support my college education. I got accepted into my first choice university, a private one. I felt guilty about the expense, but thanks to that, I met my husband. I had always been afraid of men, but he changed that for me. He was so kind when we met at our college club. He was always cheerful and could make anyone laugh. Having grown up impressed by my father and brother for the first time, I felt something positive towards a man. I started to think that I wouldn't mind dating someone like him. But I couldn't bring myself to confess and I kept my feelings hidden. In the end, we didn't date during our college years. After graduation, I ran into him at a reunion. He had changed a lot and had become a sophisticated city man. My family home was in New York, but in a rural area, and I had lived in an apartment during my university years. After graduation, I had been working in Manhattan where I was known as Plain Jane at my company. I wasn't sure if a plain Jane like me was suitable to be with him, but he asked me to come over, so I did. We reminisced about our old club days and ended up dating. After a year and a half, he formally proposed, and that's how we got married. After creating my own family, I was worried about my mother back at my old home. I felt sick thinking she was still being abused by my father and brother. Hello, Mom. How are you doing these days? I'm fine. More importantly, are you doing okay, Serena? I'm fine, really. Danny helps out with the chores. He's probably even a better cook than me. Oh, is that so? I guess he got that from his father, who's a chef, right? Maybe. Don't worry about me, okay? And you need to take care of yourself, Mom. Yes, I got it. Mom said this in her usual kind voice, but somehow I had a bad feeling. I had the hunch she was in trouble due to my father and brother's horrible treatment. They despised us for being women, but my mother in particular was targeted. It was because of the scar on her face. She had an accident before I was born, which left a prominent scar. My father would call it hideous and disgusting, so my mom always covered the right side of her face with her hair where the scar was. It was heartbreaking that my mother, who got injured defending my father, was being called ugly. It was clear my father didn't appreciate her at all. Even my brother was cruel, saying things like, "Don't come to the open house, you're disgusting." I thought those were things one should never say, even if they are family. One day my husband and I were enjoying a happy hour. In the heat of midsummer, we were sipping chilled beer while nibbling on snacks. Suddenly, our home doorbell rang. It was just before 9 p.m., and we wondered who it could be at such an hour. Stepping out with my husband, we found Mom standing there. "Oh, Danny. Mother-in-law, what brings you here at this hour? Could you lend me $20? I'm sorry for bothering you, Serena and Danny." $20 is fine, but what happened? I thought I'd head to a motel or something." "A motel? What are you planning to do there now?" "As long as I can get some sleep, that's enough." "What? I was kicked out of the house by your dad and his lot. I don't have any money." I froze in shock. When I asked her to tell me more, the details were beyond horrific. After dinner that day, Mom had been doing the usual housework. That's when Dad and brother started demanding more alcohol and ice cream. So Mom left the house with just her coin purse and smartphone. But when she got home, the door was locked from the inside. Unlock the door. I brought the drinks and stuff. Just leave it there. We don't need you anymore. What? Drop whatever you bought and disappear. A worthless wife like you. And that left my mom completely lost. She had used up almost all of her coins and couldn't even afford a taxi. So she had to walk all the way to our house. That's what happened. That's awful. Maybe I'm just useless now. Hey Serena, let's live together with your mother. Really? Are you sure? Yeah, I don't mind. We have extra rooms. She can use one. But I can't be in the way of newlyweds. It's all right. I consider you like my own mother. Thank you. Oh, my mom burst into tears, sobbing. She must have been touched by my husband's kindness, something she was likely unaccustomed to. My husband, having lost his mother at a young age, was a hard worker raised by his chef father. He graduated from college on a scholarship, so he understands people's pain. Having such a husband, I realize how lucky I am. He was the polar opposite of my father and brother. From then on, we started our life as a three. Whenever we came home, Mom always had a hot meal ready for us. You don't have to go to all the trouble. Danny and I can do housework too. It's all right. I want to do this. Thank you, Mom. I feel a bit guilty. After a comforting home-cooked meal from Mom, I was relaxing when the doorbell rang. At the door were my father and older brother. You're here after all. How dare you send me a text like that? What's with I don't want to be with you anymore? He bellowed. So what? I simply told you how I felt. She retorted. Oh, you're pretty bold. When did you start acting so high and mighty? He sneered. You were the one who told me to leave, right? So I'm saying let's get a divorce. She shrugged. Well, I don't really need an old lady like you around, but if we're divorcing, pay me alimony, he demanded. Excuse me? My father was demanding alimony from my mother in case of a divorce. I wondered what had happened. Isn't that young guy I saw you with your new boyfriend? That's cheating, isn't it? He accused. No, it isn't. She responded. Oh, you two seem pretty close though. We didn't do anything strange. I had no idea that my mother had been with a younger man. I started to panic. Was my mother really having an affair? If she was, it would be disadvantageous for her since she and my father were not yet divorced. If my father was right, she might get sued. So I glanced at my mother, but she just winked at me. It must mean everything will be okay. You dirty, tainted old woman. You won't be able to survive on your own once we divorce. Go ahead. Pay me and live your pitiful life, he scorned. I don't mind if we divorce. I have a job, she stated. Huh. The young man you saw me with is a business partner of mine. He's a very talented and wonderful person. Job. But you've always been a housewife. I've been working from home, even without a computer. A smartphone is all I need. I occasionally meet him for discussions. So that was it. So I have $50,000 in my bank. Even if I divorce you, there won't be any problem. My father was dumbfounded. My brother had the same shocked expression. Neither my father nor my brother knew my mother had been working, but I was the only one who knew. She had told me secretly. She had said to keep it a secret from Dad and my brother, probably fearing they would depend on her financially. Oh, I see. Let's start over. Come back home. My father said this as soon as he found out about the money, but my mother coldly replied, why would I? I'm not coming back. I'll divorce you. Who? Why? I'm offering to live with you. Why are you so condescending? I'm not weak like before. I don't need someone like you, cheating man. At the words cheating man coming from my mother, my father seemed shocked. My brother standing next to him was also surprised. Didn't you say something to my business partner, Emma? She asked. Well, he's dating a woman younger than Sabrina. It's repulsive, downright disgusting. No, you've got it all wrong. It's a misunderstanding. What's there to misunderstand? Can you say the same after looking at this photo? My mother was showing a picture she had found on her phone. It was a picture of my father being cozy with a young woman named Emma. They seemed too close and their faces were almost touching. I found myself thinking how gross this old man was. It was shocking to think that this pervert was my father. But how did my mother find out about the connection between my father and Emma? one of her business associates. There was a reason. One day she had gone to a cafe for a face-to-face meeting with Emma. Though they also met online, they made a point to meet in person once a month. During that meeting, my mother noticed the ring on Emma's finger. Apparently, it looked exactly like one my mother had bought for herself years ago. So she complimented Emma on her ring. Emma replied, "Thank you. My boyfriend, an older gentleman, gave it to me. Secondhand, but I love it because it's quite valuable." This made my mother suspect that my father might have given Emma the ring. This diamond and emerald ring was custom made for my mother, so there was no other like it in the world. Given that it was an original design, my mother suspected that my father had given it to his mistress, Emma. When she returned home and opened her jewelry box, she discovered the ring was indeed missing. That was when my mother was convinced. So I'll be asking for compensation for the affair, and we're getting a divorce. What? Who's going to do all the housework then? Really? You and your son can handle it, can't you? Both my father and brother were hopeless at domestic chores. Being unable to do anything, they had dumped everything on us women. So they would be in trouble if my mother left. I couldn't help wondering why they had chased my mother out in the first place. That's when I decided to intervene. If you're going to be in trouble without Mom, why did you chase her away in the first place? That was just to spite the mistress. What? I just wanted the other woman to suffer. I'm not the bad guy here. You're still saying that? You're the one who cheated. You're the worst. So disgusting. I had never been able to stand up to my father or brother before, but things are different now. I had a strong ally in my husband, and my mother had become stronger. I had to become stronger too to protect myself, my husband, and my mother. Feeling this way naturally, I was able to stand up to my father. My brother was crying and whining, saying he didn't know what to do next. Apparently, he can't even make an omelet. The only dishes he could make were bacon and eggs and salad. I wondered if those even counted as cooking. If they were so incapable of cooking, they could just live on instant ramen for the rest of their lives. My mother wasn't a housekeeper or a slave. Why should she have to come home cheerfully after being cheated on? My father and brother were out of their minds, I could tell. They couldn't hold a proper conversation. Well then, since it's decided, we need to get prepared. I have to find a good lawyer. Hold on. I don't care anymore. I'm definitely getting a divorce, be it mediation or a trial. It doesn't matter. I've suffered emotional distress from you, and I might be able to get a lot of compensation money. No way. I don't want that. My brother was smirking at this point. Even if a divorce occurs, the parent-child relationship won't end. So he said he would still be able to inherit when our mother passed away. But it didn't turn out that way. Yes, Tun, I'm not leaving you any inheritance. After all, you've been so insulting towards me. I won't let someone like that inherit anything. Did you know? If I specify my will, I can prevent the distribution of my assets to you. Once again, my brother's eyes widened in surprise. It seemed he never thought his constant insults could backfire this badly. He probably didn't realize that this was the outcome of heaping profound insults on the person from whom he was to inherit. He cried out loud, almost too loudly. We lived in an apartment, and his cries echoed down the hallways. I thought it might disturb the neighbors. A man from next door, who looked kind of scary, whom we tried not to interact with, came out due to the noise. He yelled at my father and brother, and they scampered off like they were running for their lives. Then my mother divorced my father. It was a tough battle, but she managed to secure a hefty compensation. She cut off all ties with Emma, my father's mistress. After that, my father seemed totally downcast. My brother too, upon realizing he won't inherit anything, spent every day in gloom. My father's work suffered, and he was gradually pushed into less significant roles. Finally, he voluntarily quit. My brother, who was a freelancer, couldn't make ends meet with his income alone. He reached out to me for help, but I ignored him. Of course, I blocked his calls and messages. After that, my mother moved to a different apartment. She said she felt guilty staying with us. My husband felt lonely, but I thought some distance might be a good thing. Even now, we three occasionally have dinner together, and it's truly enjoyable. But soon we will become four. That's because I am pregnant. I have no intention of letting my child meet their grandfather. I can't bear the thought of letting such a disgusting man hold my child. From now on, for my husband, my mother, and my child, I plan to become my husband 48 and I 47 female have 2 children. A son nearly adult and a daughter young teen. The problem is that my daughter always insists on using her brother's belongings like his PS5, computer, violin, literally anything he has. My son, of course, doesn't like it when she touches his belongings, and they often get into fights. Last night they had another fight because while he was out, my daughter sneaked into his bedroom and played with his computer, and when he confronted her about it, she started crying and threatened to break his belongings if we didn't make him share. I grounded her for 2 weeks and got a lock from my son's bedroom. She then called my parents to tell them what happened, and they thought I was an idiot and should force him to share. Am I the idiot for not allowing my daughter to use my son's personal belongings? Edit. We can't afford to buy 2 PS5s, 2 violins, and 2 computers, so my son has all 3. My daughter will get his hand-me-downs when we can afford to buy our son the new ones. She has a phone that she can play with, but she's bored and wants something else to play with. We couldn't afford to buy more for her. And as the older child, naturally, he would be the one to get the new ones. But we promised her that as soon as we could afford something else, we'd buy the newer versions for her brother, and she'll get his console and computer. Also, she doesn't really need a PS5, does she? All of those things were my son's birthday and Christmas presents. My daughter's birthday is right before Christmas, so money's tight, and we can't afford lavish gifts. But we got her nice clothes and shoes that she needed. You are the idiot big time. Your son does not deserve everything because he's a boy and the oldest, and all she'll ever get is his old hand-me-downs when you can afford something new. Shame on you. A reasonable person would take the total money for new gifts and divide it by 2 for the kids or make them share. Not OP. Golden child, firstborn son needs it all. And also remember the fact that her birthday is right before Christmas, and his isn't, so he gets lavish and fun gifts while she gets the shoes she needs. Jesus. If you can afford birthday and Christmas gifts for your son, you can do the same for your daughter. You need to budget better if you can't, because your daughter's birthday is too close to Christmas. Your poor daughter. Turns out that you bought all these things for him as a present, but your girl never receives anything similar because her birthday is later during the year and close to Christmas. And you apparently can't buy 2 expensive gifts. One for your son, one for your daughter. So, you decided that it's a wonderful solution to give your son all the expensive stuff, and your daughter should be understanding and happy with her phone. And just to accept that you spend all the money on her brother, and she gets what is left. Do you really think that's fair? Poor girl is feeling terrible, I suppose. There was no middle ground here. Would you like to buy a shared PS perhaps? And 2 less expensive gifts for both of them? Feels like we love our children equally. Our dear Billy and this second one. You should do better. Don't be surprised if she goes no contact with you when she's 18. Why do you hate your daughter? The more I think about this one, the more I'm bothered by you not recognizing what you're doing to cause this. I just don't understand why my daughter cut us off. She didn't invite us to the wedding. I can't see my grandchildren. We gave everything to her and her brother. No gratitude. That's your future. I can't believe that you think it's acceptable for one child to get really nice gifts, while the other gets more modest gifts, with the promise of getting their siblings hand-me-downs when you can afford to buy him new stuff again. Do better. I'm 34 male, a dad of 4. My babies are a young male teen, a female tween, a male tween, and a male pre-tween. Our youngest has some significant sensory issues and anger management issues, which he's being evaluated for. Important info for context. He's already been diagnosed with ODD, but this goes beyond that. My sister 34, my twin, has a tween daughter, Jane, who's a spoiled rotten kid as she's an only child, and my sister puts a whole new meaning to gentle parenting, as in she doesn't parent because her kid is just expressing herself, and she doesn't want to parent out her personality, which sucks. I love my niece to the depth of my being, but I don't like her or my sister. I don't know how else to put it. On Saturday we had a memorial of life service for my uncle, who passed away months ago. It was held at my brother's house. There were probably about 12 kids there. We got 40 of those 60-pack water balloon things and let the kids go ham. It was a huge ordeal. However, at some point my youngest decided the water was too much for him to handle, said he was done playing, and came to sit by me and dry off. He was being great, which I was grateful for because he has a lot of bad days. But my niece kept coming up and throwing more water balloons at him after she was asked to stop. It was causing him to spiral and he started raging out basically. And my sister was telling me to calm my kid down and tell him to stop being a baby. She didn't want to get wet, so every single time he went to throw one back, she would start screaming, telling him to stop. At that point, my sister got involved and yelled at my son saying, "Don't you dare." She said not to get her wet, because she's wearing white, and it'll be see-through. I told her to tell her daughter to stop throwing water balloons at my son, because he had already said to stop and she said he's already wet. So basically, my niece was perfectly fine to throw crap at my kid, who had asked her to stop repeatedly, but they weren't letting him defend himself. The last time my niece came up to him, I spoke up and said, "Don't even think about it." He said no. She didn't listen and threw it anyways, so I grabbed the hose beside me and drenched her for a solid 30 seconds. She immediately starts crying and covering herself, and goes to hang out in my sister's car. My sister started scolding me, stating that I knew it was going to make her see-through, and decided to be a creep anyway. My mom and father kicked her out for that comment. I'm getting texts from my brother-in-law stating that I'm a pig, and that what I did was uncalled for and abusive, and that I would never be allowed around my niece again because I'm inappropriate. Edit, the dress wasn't even all white. It had a stripe along her stomach. That's the only spot of white that was on her. The rest of the dress was dark. Not the idiot. You should have soaked your stupid sister as well. Gentle parenting my butt. She'd never have said those awful things about your son, if she were truly gentle parenting. I had a niece that would always attack my son. She'd hit, bite, scratch. My son was very gentle and doesn't like violence. Well, one day, after multiple bite attacks, I told her dad, "Everything she does to him, I'm gonna do to you for the rest of the night. You should stop drinking and get ready." Funny how they started seeing the error in her ways after that. Oh look, a parent your own child, or someone will parent it for you in the wild. Your child, the younger one in this situation, got hit with water balloons after being asked not to multiple times. But that was okay for Sister Dearest. It sounds like your bad of a sister is raising a brat of a daughter. Remember that just because she's your twin, doesn't mean you have to expose your children to her, or her poor parenting. OP, you probably want to limit your exposure to people who would, without a second thought, absolutely annihilate your reputation. Those accusations are not ones to mess with, and you should never allow yourself to be in a situation that these idiots could use against you again. The first time someone accuses you of inappropriateness when there was none, is the last time that person should have the opportunity to do so. Reputations are shattered with less, and often aren't rebuilt in this lifetime. I've always had a female friend and crush in college called Cam. Our families were good friends as well. Now, we didn't click concerning our personalities. I was a huge nerd and I just liked the idea of dating someone like her. We were friends throughout college, but lost touch till recently. Cam and I are both 30. Cam also has a preschool-aged son. Recently we started being friends again, mostly messaging and sending memes. I told her early on that I wasn't interested in dating when she flirted with me. She's asked me out a couple of more times, but I've turned her down. Well, recently I hung out with a guy friend in my hometown whose girlfriend is good friends with Cam, and he asked why I don't give Cam a shot. I told him that it's not her. It's just that I don't want to be with someone that has a kid. I said that 5 years ago she was my ideal girl. But if I'm having a kid, I want it to be with someone who's also having their first time having a kid. Like, dating someone who's already been married before too would cheapen it for me. I said that I would like someone ideally 24 to 26. Then he asked me how I would rate her on a scale of 1 to 10. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I said she's pretty fit for someone with a kid. But face-wise, I feel like age has just made her look tired and drained the moisture from her face. Which I understand, as it must be a lot of effort raising a kid by yourself. I said this all really stupidly, thinking it was just between us. However, the next day I got a FaceTime from Cam with her crying. I tried to apologize, but she wasn't having any of it. Now Cam, my friend, and his girlfriend think of me as a giga idiot. Not the idiot, read your preferences. But we're gonna sit and laugh at you for thinking a 20-something will want you. You're aging too. I guarantee that you don't look the same as you did 5 years ago. Her face lost moisture. That's hysterical. Everyone's the idiot here. You for talking so poorly about a friend's looks. It's rude. And you could have just said she's not my type. The friend for asking you to rate her, and you responding and then reporting back to Cam. You could have just said no and not responded. Also, Cam, just a bit because you've turned her down a few times and she still had a friend ask why. The way you talk about a friend's appearance is terrible. So he's the idiot for responding when his friend and her girlfriend try to gang press him into dating their single mother friend. Rating her wasn't even solicited. They pushed him, and he refused to rate her, and outlined why she wasn't attractive. But he's the idiot because he said away from the person why he doesn't want to date her when asked why he doesn't give her a chance. Surely the idiots are the two friends that wouldn't accept a boundary, thought it their place to press OP into a romantic relationship, then needlessly passed on the reason OP said no. Honestly, I was going to say the exact same thing. If Cam's going to be so childish that she's going to send friends to try to pressure him into reversing his rejection and to press for details, she deserves the comments. He let her down gently the first time and the second time. Then she started playing stupid childish games and won something to cry over. Not the idiot. Cam needed to learn that no, I don't want to date you doesn't mean continue pushing for it and playing crappy proxy games, and I'll change my mind. It's also concerning to me that someone so hilariously immature is raising a kid. We've been dating for about 2.5 years. In the beginning, we lived in separate homes. But recently, a 26 female moved in with him, 29. He works in investment banking and his hours are longer than usual, around 12 to 13 hours a day, and I work a typical job 8 hours a day. However, this doesn't mean that I owe him something. I'm not forcing him to work in investment banking. He could easily get a normal job at a normal company because of his experience, but he chooses not to. He could work 8 hours a day, and we can do the cleaning and cooking together, but he won't do it. Instead, he works longer hours and expects me to cook something for him. We argued again a couple of days ago because I didn't cook and told him to order something. He got mad and exactly said, "You work 8 hours a day, come home, sit on your phone or watch Netflix until you sleep. You're lazy and selfish." This made me really furious because I'm not lazy. I just feel tired after work and don't want to do anything when he can easily order food or cook for himself if he wants homemade food. No one is forcing him to work those long hours, so I don't see myself as being selfish or lazy, to be honest. Was I being an idiot by saying something that might come across as rude, like order something? Did I deserve to be called lazy and selfish for not cooking for him? Am I the idiot? Edit. His dad owns the place, so neither of us pays rent. We only pay HOA fees, property taxes, and bills. I do contribute to all of those with a big portion of my salary. If we go somewhere I can't afford, he covers the expenses, but I'm not expecting him to take me to those expensive places. It's entirely his choice. I'm perfectly fine with going to places that I can afford, and when we do that, I pay for myself. As for chores, he's never told me that he would expect me to cook for him before I moved in. Before I moved in, he already had a cleaning service which we still use. We don't have any major chores, apart from simple tasks like washing and cleaning up, which I end up doing most of the time. He basically doesn't do any chores. Not the idiot and break up with him. He wants a servant, not a partner. You're both working full-time jobs. His longer hours don't mean that you should automatically be responsible for anything. Instead of arguing when things aren't done to his expectation, sit down and talk through creating a plan for who will do what you both can live with. If he isn't willing to contribute, reevaluate your relationship and determine if this dynamic is sustainable for you. And please don't have kids. Childcare will just be another thing you're 100% responsible for. No, he does want a partner. He pays for a cleaning service that OP doesn't contribute to. OP also pays no rent, and her boyfriend pays for all dates and trips. He wants a partner. OP clearly wants a sugar daddy. She's not covering her share. She'd be covering her share if she paid for part of the cleaning service or did some cooking. But right now, she's not contributing anything really, and expecting her boyfriend to fund her lifestyle. I have a hard time believing she can't pay for dinner once in a while when she's not even paying any rent. OP's the idiot. Exactly. You know, he works 12 to 13 hours a day and is probably very tired after work. And you still can't spend 15 to 20 minutes a day fixing a quick dinner for the both of you? Honestly, what are you even contributing to this relationship? Girl, you have a pretty sweet deal. You should cook his dinner Monday through Thursday and let him pay for fun things on the weekend. Save up your money in case it doesn't work out. For the past 14 years, I, 26 male, have owned an absolute angel of a German Shepherd. Everybody and anybody who met her always fell in love with her, as she always laid next to or on them. This is especially true for my autistic cousin who loved to hug and play fetch with her. Unfortunately, as pets age, their health declines and reaches a point where difficult decisions have to be made. A month ago, after seeing how much she was suffering from her arthritis, I decided to put her down. When the time came, the vet came to my place to do everything, with her final moments being just the two of us. Afterward, I held off on telling friends and family as I wanted some downtime before breaking the news. Unfortunately, that changed when my parents, along with my aunt and her family, came by unannounced this week. Reality hit them hard when they saw the urn with her picture and her date of passing. My autistic cousin, tween male, struggled to understand at first before having a meltdown. While my parents understood, the same couldn't be said for my aunt, who got angry. She started going off about how I should have waited for them to get back from their trip. She also said that she and her family had the right to be there due to how much her son loved her. In the politest way possible, I told her that the world doesn't revolve around her son, and that I wouldn't have had them come over if they were back. This led to her cursing me out before storming off with her son, to which I hadn't heard or seen them since. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. And also, holy wow, your aunt is angry to the point of cussing you out? And giving you the silent treatment because your dog died? Has no one told her about showing compassion for people who are grieving? I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm not putting my dog down any second sooner than I have to. But when that day comes, I won't be waiting for anyone out of town to return. My first responsibility is to the dog. Yes, a heads up to prepare the son before he arrives and gets a surprise would have been ideal. But this was an unannounced visit. The OP got ambushed. And in this situation, they're the chief mourner. They've got their own grief to process. So Aunt's attempt to make the OP responsible for her son's reaction was out of order. Honestly, the aunt also